Hola, hola chicos, bienvenidos a otra plática de Academia Futaba. Yo soy Iliana y estamos aquí con Silvana Imperatori, que nos va a platicar acerca de los taikos japoneses. ¿Ok? Silvana es originaria de Noruega y se especializa en instrumentos japoneses, incluidos el taiko, el koto, la flauta de bambú, así como algunas otras tradiciones vocales japonesas y presentaciones folclóricas. ¿Ok? Ella se mudó a Japón y fue aceptada en el Kodo Apprentice Center en el 2016 hasta el 2018. ¿Ok? Y a partir del 2022, Silvana es artista en el grupo Taikos en Australia. ¿Ok? Ha participado en varios proyectos con el grupo y también en colaboraciones. ¿Ok? A partir de ahora, esta presentación va a hacerse en inglés, entonces, pues ahí están los subtítulos. ¿Ok? Silvana, hello.
Hi, thank you.
No, thank you for having us. Okay, so Silvana, can you tell us a little bit about taiko and about your experience?
Yes, I sure can. So, taiko are Japanese drums. So, taiko is the word for drum in Japanese. So, it refers to a lot of different instruments. Especially in the West, we tend to use the word taiko for only Japanese drums. And it can be this one on the side here, the big one there. And there's a vast variety of them that you can find in Japan. And they have a very long history in Japan as well. There's different forms. So you have, for example, taiko that are used in religious rituals, such as like Buddhism and things like that. And then you have also a very large folk tradition of, for example, matsuri, festivals, and townships having different forms of drumming. So a lot to pick from, a lot to choose from, very much interesting things. And these drums are usually made out of wood. You can see the skins as well. They're usually made out of cowhide, sometimes horse as well. And there's special craftsmen that make these beautiful instruments. Yeah. And
That's
then
really interesting.
yeah, my background. So I'm originally from Norway, and I didn't really do much music there. So my dream was actually to become a puppeteer. Um, the Cookie Monster. That was my was my big dream. And then I wanted to study Japanese puppets, and to make that happen, I moved to America and worked at Disney World for a year to make money and hopefully some Japanese friends while I was at it. And by some luck, I was able to enter the practices of the group that performs as one at one of the Disney parks. And I started practicing, started learning Japanese there, got some friends, and it just blew me away pretty much. Kind of the physicality of the Japanese drum. And yeah, I moved to Japan and decided to learn Japanese properly so I could audition for the Performing Arts Ensemble Kodo, which was my goal. And that's actually where I met you, Iliana.
Yes. Yeah, Silvana and I were practicing taiko together in Kyoto in the university, in the university group.
Yeah,
So yeah, she is pretty tough. She's pretty cool.
too.
Okay, so you went to Japan, you started with the university group, and then you wanted to go to Kodo. And
Yeah.
so how was it? How was the process of entering Kodo or the application or all of this?
Yeah, so it's quite a vigorous process. So, well, first you have to attend kind of a 2 day long audition process. So in preparation for that, obviously I studied Japanese, I practiced taiko, and then also kind of fitness levels because it's very much an active art form. You use your body a lot, and especially Kodo is quite known for their vigorous workout regime. So you basically you go to the island and they'll look at, your fitness level, your stamina. They'll look at you as a person, I guess. There's a couple of interviews, and they'll ask you lots of different questions, as well as you have to read or at least when I auditioned, I had to read their book, and I had to read in Japanese 3 different essays on different topics, as for example, what kind of a performer I want to become, and things like that. So it was pretty much kind of 2 years of focusing on that goal. And then I went to Sado Island, did my best, and luckily they accepted me as an apprentice. And then a couple of months later, I was already on the boat to the island to start training at the Kodo Apprentice Center. Yeah.
Yes, because on top of all of that preparation, this interview or this audition was in this Sado Island, which is pretty far away from anywhere, right?
Yes. So it's basically, and it's a rather large island, but the population has decreased quite a bit. Yeah, so it's off the coast of Niigata, so maybe you have to look it up on the map, but you can get there by ferry. So there's a car ferry. It's also a jet ferry that takes about an hour, but usually the car ferry, I think, is about 2 hours and something. Yeah, and then, you drive for another hour from that port, and then suddenly you're kind of in the middle of the forest in this old school building that they repurposed for the apprentice center. So it's quite secluded out in the nature. Yeah.
So it must be so beautiful. Okay, so thank you. It's been quite a ride, right? So this taiko experience, right? Okay,
Goodbye.
so you were in the apprentice center for a couple of years?
Yes, so the apprenticeship is for about 2 years, maybe just short of that. And then so I did my first year first, and then there's kind of a reselection process where some people get to do the second year, while others sadly have to leave the island or choose to leave the island. Yeah, so I was lucky to be able to do both years. And so I started my life there in January, I think 2016, maybe 2017.
I think
16.
16, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I was still around.
so a big transition. So kind of left all my stuff in Kyoto where I was living before, and kind of gave it away to friends and things like that, and just had basically one big backpack and then a small backpack, and just entered the building and kind of started that lifestyle. So very different life. Mm.
Yes. And it was really interesting because she couldn't you had like a phone like for everyone, but you couldn't use like your own cell phone, and there was like no other way of communicating with her but by letter, and sometimes on the phone on the communal phone.
So the Apprentice Center kind of, it's a place where you can focus, and you're really supposed to, because you go there to learn, but it's with the aim of becoming a Kodo member. So, you have your work cut out for you, and it's very structured as well. So, for example, we get up at 5 a.m. every morning. I believe in the winter it's 5:30, so they put it 30 minutes later. But you get up every morning, start with some light exercise, then you clean the practice space and the whole living areas and all of that, and then you go for a run in the morning, roughly about a 10K, kind of depending on how fast you are. And there's a very steep hill that you have to first run down, and then you run up again in the morning. And then you have your breakfast, and then usually you have 2 hours or so of your first kind of formal training, which could be anything from taiko to dance to anything of the other things that you do. And then lunch, more training after lunch. Then you might have a little break, which Either if you're on cooking duty, you'll go and cook dinner, or if you're not on cooking duty, most likely you'll continue to do your self-practice. Dinner, evening, more practice, and then you have to be in bed by very strictly in bed by 10 p.m. Yeah.
Whoa.
You know, it's set up for a very kind of environment that's very focused on the task ahead. And one part of that is that we actually don't have internet, we don't have computers, we don't have our own cell phones. But as you said, there's one one phone in the common room, but there's anywhere between 20 and yeah, like there's up to 20 apprentices at one time and one phone line. So you don't really get to use it a lot. And even if you did, you want to spend your time practicing. So, you know, you can't be on the phone too much. But yeah, once in a while you use it. But mainly, you know, as Iliana said, we'll send letters. And I have quite a bit of letters from Iliana that I still kept.
Yeah, I have yours too. Hi. So it was really an intense internship, right? Apprenticeship. So that led to a lot of experience in folk tradition and dances and matsuri and all of this. Can you tell us about that? Uh, about maybe your favorite matsuri or stuff
Yes,
like
of
this?
course. So at the Apprentice Center, we're very lucky because we get to connect with the local community and their festivals and kind of their traditional arts and kind of experience it from kind of the perspective of living the life. So we do a lot of things like, for example, planting rice and things and such things. And then kind of, you know, feeling that connection between the people who did these art forms maybe a long time ago, they were probably rice farmers as well, and kind of what kind of body movements were normal in their normal life, and how does that connect to how maybe we do the performing arts, and as well as what they might have meant, because a lot of these performing arts, they're, you know, I don't know if prayer is the right word, but it's kind of to make sure that, for example, crops grow well, or hopefully evil will not, you know, come, and because the consequence of that would be very great. Before nowadays, you can go to the store and buy rice, but let's say that all of your crops got ruined by one thing or another, you know, it's very detrimental. Yeah, and life during winter is very hard. So, for example, we didn't have heating or aircon, like so in the summer it's very hot, in the winter it's very cold, literally the snow inside the building. So kind of feeling what that might have felt like a long time ago is really important. And yeah, and then we also do lots of other instruments as well. So for example, you can see here we have the koto. I did that as a second year. We also have things like these. So the shinobue, this is a bamboo flute. And these often go hand in hand at festivals and matsuri. So, for example, the taiko and the fue, they're often very good friends because you can hear the flute with its high pitch, even though the taiko is quite loud as well. So my first kind of real connection to matsuri would be Kakenoura Matsuri. So the village that we lived in was called Kakenoura, and they have a tradition called Oni Daiko. So Oni kind of means demon if you translate it, but it's not really a good translation. So I suggest you kind of look it up. So Oni, they're kind of spirits maybe. Now they're these figures that take care. They're very strong and they take care of the village usually. That's kind of the narrative. And then on Sado Island, you have a vast tradition of this Oni Daiko, where the Oni will dance and kind of hit the taiko as well. But it's kind of a little bit similar to the one in the back there. So on one side, the Oni will dance and sometimes there will be a chant. On the other side, there's someone playing, and usually kind of look at the feet and kind of analyze how they're dancing and change your drum patterns to that. So it's a very interesting kind of art form, I think. And then, so it's a community thing, right? So for me, it was very special to be able to actually learn it, participate in it, and then connect to the local people through these kind of art forms.
So interesting, so interesting. Um, yeah, I've heard all those stories from you, from going to Matsuri and playing in different places. That is really interesting. I've seen her dance too, and it's really cool. Okay, so what about mini musical, um how do you say, interlude?
Really?
Yeah,
Yes.
so can you show us a little bit about the instruments that you have? You prepared all of that.
So it's a little bit problematic today because Zoom does not like taiko very much, but maybe I'll play you a little bit on this bamboo flute. So we call these flutes shinobue. So bue or fue refers to flute, and shino is actually the type of bamboo this particular flute is made from. And it has a very nice kind of airy bamboo-y sound. I'm not sure if you can hear
Bamboo.
it. We'll try. Something like that. So they come in many different pitches. So this one's kind of tuned to kind of be able to play with like a piano or something like that. This is a smaller one with a slightly higher pitch. And then you have also flutes that sound to our ears kind of out of tune that often are used in matsuri. So they have this kind of very different feel and sound world to them. So very interesting instrument. They're called shinobue if you want to check it out. Another instrument that I learned how to play is the koto. So this is a stringed instrument, so has 13 strings and sounds very beautiful. I like it very much. So also very good to check out. It's called koto.
Yes, I think both the flute and the koto sound really Japanese, like really traditional Japanese, right?
Yes, yes, yes. So they have that kind of aura about them. So with the koto, you can tune the instrument. You see those little white things. Those are I can shift those and make different tunings. So this was a very happy tuning. You can also shift that a little bit, and then it sounds like the Japanese. So you often hear this in like soundtracks or in the background on like commercials. Shinobu as well, many different forms, like kabuki, you have many different kind of sound worlds.
Yeah.
Uh, but they're very kind of integrated. So you'll hear it everywhere if you go in Japan, I believe. Then obviously we also have the taiko. So I'll just do, because I can't play too much, I'll do a couple of big strikes on the biggest drum that we have.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, it's very difficult because of the Zoom settings. So
Yes.
I'll make sure, Iliana, to send you a couple of different things, and hopefully you can share that with everyone.
Yes, I'll share all the coolness of taiko with everyone. Okay. So a couple of more questions. What do you like the most about playing taiko?
Oh, that's difficult. um, there's a lot of different things that I enjoy. So one is quite obviously the cultural connection. So for me, not being Japanese, it's a way for me to connect with people. It's a way of like participating in a tradition and get greater understanding for a culture. And and then the pure kind of like actual playing aspects of it, I really enjoy the physicality of it. So you use your whole body when you drum, and you have many different forms and ways of movement. So movement is a very important part of taiko playing. For example, the drum I have behind me, I can just show you. I won't play, but I'll show you the movement of it. This taiko, when it's put on a stand like this, it's called Hachijo Daiko. So it's native to an island with the same name, Hachijo Island. And they used to kind of hang it from or kind of onto trees with rope. And then one day, the story goes kind of that someone had the great idea that they want to play it inside the theater. So they decided to make this stand, which is very handy. So it has a very beautiful sound language as well. So definitely look up Hachijo Daiko, and you can play it in two separate ways. One way is with your legs kind of spread apart like this, and then you'll kind of quite strongly move into it, kind of like this. So as you can see, there's a lot of movement. Another way is, for example, in a kimono. So you'll have your legs together like this, and then you'll kind of move more like this. Maybe take it back.
Quite interesting how the pose, how the movements change if you have a kimono or if you have a different garment.
Yes, very much so. So it's something I find really interesting about taiko and performing arts in general is that so you wear a kimono, therefore it affects also the art form and how you perform it. Yes.
It is really interesting that you can actually play taiko in a kimono to begin with.
That's kind of because as you know, Iliana, you've tried taiko before. It is a lot of work, It's a lot of core muscles, and it's a good workout. And then you kind of need all of your body to try and get a good sound, especially if you look at the ones behind me. They're called odaiko, or grand drums. You need a lot of power to get a good sound out of them and kind of move the air inside of the instrument. Yet, you have restrictions such as, having your legs together. However, there's a way to get around that, and that's just something you have to learn. And as you can see with the Hachijo Daiko, it looks very nice and graceful.
Quite graceful, yes. But yeah, the physicality of taiko is really really good. It's a good workout, and it's music also, and it's art. It's really cool. Okay, so could you tell us a little bit more about your experience in taikos?
Taikos ne? Yes. So long story short, I wasn't able to get a work visa after I finished my apprenticeship. So I started actually working for Kodo as a staff member at the Kodo Cultural Foundation, but couldn't get it because I hadn't finished a university degree, basically. So I was still able to work 1 year under a working holiday visa, but in desperate need of a university degree, I started looking and I found out about Australia and thought and found out about taikos as well and was like, oh, I really want to study with this group because they look amazing. And for me, taiko had been a very Japanese experience thus far. Even in America, kind of, core members were Japanese, and yeah, it just felt like I know it only was for a short time as well. So in Japan, that's where I got my taiko kind of taiko journey done. So I wanted to kind of look at Japan from the outside and maybe see if I can get kind of a wider horizon of what taiko can be and also kind of what other non-Japanese, how they play taiko, how they think about it, what it looks like. Yeah, so that was kind of the motivation behind that. So I auditioned for the individual development program. So it's basically, it's kind of like similar to an apprenticeship, I guess, in that you have several lessons a week, you do many different things, and then you work towards a showcase at the end of the year. So I did 2 of those, and then I've been training with them, and then finally I became a taiko's artist at the end of it. So now I perform at both main stage and I do, corporate performances. I also educate. So I work as a teacher. I teach taiko. And then we also do schools programs. So for example, going to schools, and then we do a show where we feature the shinobu, the taiko, and we just teach about the many different styles that we have, because as you can see, we have one taiko maybe, but there's many different ways of playing that one taiko, and they belong to many different traditions. So it's been a great experience for me to actually share that passion I have and that experience from Japan, and being able to share the great instrument of taiko. Yeah. So no, very good experience overall, but also it's a very different experience. Yeah.
It must have been quite a change of perspective, to taiko, playing, especially in this very strict, very Japanese way in kodo, and then changing to taikos, which is, I'm assuming, still quite traditional, but with the change because they're Australians, and it must have been quite a change, right?
Yes, it's definitely very different. Like not the main difference, but so the artistic director that we have at Taikos, he used to be the principal percussionist of the Sydney Symphony for 20 years. So, high up there in that craft as well, and amazing taiko player. But a lot of the people here, they have kind of that percussion background. So the level of technique is very high, I find, in that they're very skillful already in what they do. And then on top of that, they've kind of acquired those taiko skills. So the knowledge in this room by the people who train here is very, very, very high and fascinating, because they still draw on that classical background that they have and those strengths that they have. So you can see that the music, for example, that Ian Cleworth composes, I find it very interesting for taiko. It still sounds very much like taiko though. So sometimes it's not like it's just composed for a regular percussion and put it on a taiko. It's actually thought about it and made something that kind of suits the language still of taiko, which I think is very hard to do. So where I do think that taiko still is very kind of connected to that is that they've obviously went to Japan and they've flown out sensei as well, and they've truly kind of studied that root of taiko, and they still very much keep true to kind of the form, the language of the drum, and just like kind of being committed to creating a good sound and having it look right.
Yeah,
which
so
is
it's not just let's make this song and play it in taiko, right? So
no,
they
no.
already know also the language of taiko.
So it's a whole process, which again kind of creates something new. So I find being here, they have a very kind of wide outlook on taiko and what it can be. So it's definitely been very interesting. And they've also done a lot of, as I see it, very important work in that, all our bodies are different. And then I can attest for that in Japan, it was quite difficult at times just because, the perfect body for taiko is technically kind of a long torso, short legs, and not too long arms. That's kind of, it suits the taiko drum very well, which is kind of like a traditional Japanese body, I guess. And I don't have that at all. So my legs are way too long, my arms are too long, I'm too tall. Um, and then, it just doesn't look right, at least with style. So it's been very interesting coming here because they really think about it and like, how do you make this look right? How do I create that sound, even though kind of my body is working against me? So it's been very interesting in those aspects.
Oh, that must be, how can I say, you must feel a little bit more of the support from other, Westerners who have maybe a body similar to yours. Not sure, but maybe it's
Oh,
their
definitely.
body is quite different, right?
Yes, so we're kind of in the same boat. So, but here too, everyone's different. And in Japan too, I'm sure everyone's different. It's not like we're all one. But having a sensei that kind of understands that struggle, and then you can kind of really openly discuss these kinds of things and get tips. It's been really valuable, and it's been very nice. But we do share this space with a lot of different people. So taikos is made out of Japanese people, the Norwegian, and Australians. There's a very diverse group of people, and also our student body, our students at our school, so many different backgrounds. So, you know, some people do some things well, some people do other things well. So it's good to be able to kind of see all of the different people playing taiko because you can do it. It's just, you have to think about it a little bit.
Makes sense, makes sense. So sounds a little bit difficult, but sounds like a lot of fun.
For sure. I wouldn't do it if it wasn't fun, I think. Yeah.
So I think that's all the questions we have. Thank you, Silvana, for showing us and telling us all of that about you and about taiko and all of this experience. So just to say goodbye, can you please play the koto a little bit more for us?
Yes, of course.
Thank you, Silvana. Okay, so see you